how long can you keep backfilling SNAP while the government's closed?
Yeah, not long. I mean, this is the struggle right now because we are facing the double whammy of the impact from the so-called big, beautiful bill that was passed earlier this year, and the steep cuts to Medicaid have also impacted our ability to keep our healthcare system afloat. We're really struggling in that realm. And of course, as you said, people are going to go hungry this weekend. And there are a couple things that I just wanted to point out is that in the past, whenever there has been a government shutdown, there have been contingency funds used to make sure that people did not lose a SNAP payment. Again, that's just, modest food assistance for people. It's the first time in which you have had an administration saying we will not be using contingency funds to make those payments. This is a choice. It doesn't have to be this way. That the SNAP money is not it's not contingent upon us coming to a deal to reopen the government. And that's what I want to make sure people understand. There is money that can be used right now, and which is why so many of the states the states' AGs decided to sue. The other piece that is troubling, and that's why you asked how long will Vermont be able to do that, the administration has also said they will not be reimbursing states for feeding people. And it is deeply disturbing to me that even as recently as the end of September, the Trump administration had, by its own admission, had put notices on their web pages related to USDA saying that the funds were there and available and would be used. And now that's all been scrubbed and replaced with highly partisan information. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't.
For a little perspective on Vermont, roughly 1 in 10 people rely on federal food assistance in your state. And based on the reporting that I saw, that's about 38,000 people who low-income households in Vermont, 38,000 households, to be clear, not people, continuing to receive support here from SNAP. You guys call it 3 Squares Vermont, the program. And so you've got this covered for 15 days. You know what Republicans would say? You know what the president would say if he was sitting here, if Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, would say then Democrats should vote to reopen the government and this wouldn't be a problem. How do you respond?
I know they would say that. And what's misleading there are 2 things that are misleading about that. One, the money is already there. All the president has to do is instruct the contingency funds to be released, and people would not be going hungry this weekend. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, even if the House had been in D.C. this week, which the Democrats were there. Again, Democrats were there ready to work with Republicans. Republicans weren't there. It's not as if the spigot just gets turned on automatically. And so the most immediate way to get food to people is to use these contingency funds. And I just think it's a very sad state of affairs when you have the Speaker of the House using hungry people as a political football. Because again, this is unusual. This doesn't usually happen during a shutdown. You don't usually have an administration saying we're not going to feed people. You also don't have an administration, a president traveling overseas during a government shutdown. Usually you have the president and the Speaker of the House trying to convene people to get to an agreement. The other thing that I want people to understand is that the so-called continuing resolution that they put out is only good for another 15 days.
Well, so, yes, right.
I mean, there's so much that has gone wrong here because Republicans were not willing to meet with us before the 11th hour. And then by that point, it was an unwillingness to have any kind of negotiation. So it makes me very angry.
But asking about that date a lot. I mean, even if we voted today, government reopens, we'd be heading for potentially another shutdown before Thanksgiving. So obviously some of this may need to be rewritten. There's a federal judge who's considering this lawsuit coming from state attorneys general, as we discussed, and indicated, yes, this is Judge Indira Talwani, indicated that she likely will order the Trump administration to use these reserves to at least partially fund SNAP. The quote, Congress has put money in an emergency fund, and it is hard for me to understand how this is not an emergency, unquote. Congresswoman, yes, is that how this ends?
I hope so. In terms of this particular issue, I certainly hope that that will be the ruling from the federal judge. What's complicated, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but I want to just highlight it because it's a complicating factor here, that the people who would be positively impacted would be the people in the states who were a party to that lawsuit. So I can't remember if it's 25 or 27 states AGs that sued, but the states who were not party to the lawsuit would not automatically be receiving those funds.
Wow, interesting.
Yes.
We got a lot to figure out here.
Yes.
If you're, yes, called back and the president wants to start talking, say, after election night, are you ready to have that conversation?
Look, we've been there. I have been going back and forth between Vermont and D.C. ever since Mike Johnson decided to put the House into recess. We can't come to any kind of agreement back in our district. So I've been traveling there regularly. Everyone in the Democratic caucus has been there, ready to do the work. And meanwhile, trying to meet the needs back in the district. I just, I want people to understand that, of course, mm-hmm, there is always, when you're in D.C., there's partisan one-upmanship happening. But I want, right, people to understand that we have never had a situation in which a party, and in this case, it's the Republicans who control the House, the Senate, and the White House, are not willing to do any kind of negotiation and also left town. Like, at least the Senate is there trying to do work. The House Republicans have not been in D.C. for, what are we at, 30 consecutive days now?
Something days, yeah.